Well, we now go live to our outside broadcast unit at Easter Road in Edinburgh to join Alan Fisher.
Dozens of fans have gathered at Easter Road to find out what news there has been of the Mercer offer, but of course it looks now as if there will be no news tonight. Kenny McLean, the man who's led the Hands Off Hibs campaign, how do you react to that?
Oh, I think it's terrible that we haven't had a decision yet, Alan, particularly when, we expected it at 3 o'clock. As far as I'm concerned, this points now to a moral victory for the fans, and I'm delighted about that. And if we don't get an answer till Monday at 9 o'clock, which I think is the deadline, then it's our intention to make mass protest to the Scottish League and set the campaign up yet again.
Would you be concerned if the deadline was extended for a further 7 days?
Oh yes, let Mr Mercer call it a day and let him bow out gracefully. I mean, the situation's quite clear. We've got 36 and he's got 64, so in that we've won. There's no contenders, that's it.
Pat Stanton, what sort of problems does this cause the management and the playing staff at Hibernian, knowing there is this doubt?
Well, putting it mildly, it makes it very difficult. The people standing behind us, the players, everybody connected with the club, the day-to-day running the club, the season's just approaching, and nobody at this present time knows what's happening. I think it's very unfair what's happened here.
Just how unsettling would it be for the management and the players, knowing that the season is only about a month away?
Well, as regards players, new players coming to the club, it's very difficult to ask a player to come here when you don't know what the future is for the club.
Do you think there is any way around it?
No, I think the present group of players have just got to pretend nothing's happening and just get on with their training and keep themselves fit for when the season starts. But it's very difficult for them to pretend that there's nothing going on.
Kenny, what can the campaign that has gone on since the bid was launched on the 4th of June do now?
As I say, the most massive campaign you can pile up now is going to directly against the Scottish League, because it's high time they came out and said something. All they've did in the past is sit on the fence, and really the time now, the pressure on the players, the management and everything else, supporters clubs getting their buses organised and all these sort of things have got to be a contention. And I feel very strongly about this, and we're now going to make a total mass protest to the Scottish League to give vent to our feelings.
Briefly, are you convinced that the campaign has got the 26% it needs to beat the Wallace Mercer bid?
I already said to you, Alan, we've got 36%. 36% will not be changed under any circumstances. And I regard that as a moral victory at this minute in time. I look forward to starting next season.
Kenny and Pat, back to the studio.
Alan Fisher live in Edinburgh. Well, today's events mark the latest stage in the extraordinary battle for ownership of one of Scotland's most famous football clubs. The bitter struggle has split Edinburgh, and when viewed in sequence, brings into focus the clash between football loyalty and financial speculation.
The fans believed football was about passion, devotion and loyalty. Now they know money is the name of the game. The sensational battle for Hibernian Football Club began on Monday, June the 4th. Hearts chairman Wallace Mercer stunned the football world by announcing he was making a bid to take over his arch rivals. His vision was a united team in Edinburgh, capable of challenging the best in Europe. But his big money plans split the city's soccer community in two.
And I can only encapsulate it by saying the opportunity has arisen to create a focal point of professional football at the highest level, representing Edinburgh and the Lothians.
Within hours, Hibs fans headed for Easter Road. Their anger easily bubbled to the surface, the main target of their hatred, Wallace Mercer. The Hearts chairman and his family were put under 24-hour police guard. The fierce opposition staggered him.
I mentioned yesterday tribalism. Well, I've experienced it in the last 24 hours. The fact of having a 24-hour guard in my family with the police, bricks through windows, press taking photographs of bricks through windows. And I'm doing this for my colleagues, my family and everyone else who I don't wish to get dragged into the debris and the gutter of what is currently going on out in the street there.
June the 9th, thousands packed into Easter Road for the launch of the Hands Off Hibs campaign. Heroes of bygone years, celebrity supporters and lifelong fans addressed an emotional rally. The Hibs chairman David Duff condemned the bid as hostile and unwelcome. But victory in the fight to save his club from oblivion was still far from certain.
Ladies and gentlemen, we reject the offer on two fronts. One, the offer is inadequate financially, and two, it is socially unacceptable. There must be an independent Hibs.
June the 20th, Scotland Today exclusively revealed Meadowbank Stadium was being considered as the new home for Hibs. The proposal came from Edinburgh District Council, which had already objected to the proposed takeover. The move would allow Hibs to sell Easter Road to pay off part of their massive debt. By July the 3rd, the fight had become increasingly bitter. Wallace Mercer issued his response to the Hibs defence document. He accused the Hibs board of appealing to their fans' emotions to disguise their disastrous financial and management performance.
I'm the chairman of Hibs, and I fully intend to stay the chairman of Hibs.
July the 6th, Wallace Mercer revealed he'd secured 64% of Hibs shares, short of the 76% he needed for victory, but enough to put the bid into extra time. His 40p a share offer was extended for 7 days. This past week, the battle has been less public, but no less frenzied. As the takeover continued towards its dramatic conclusion, the future of Hibs hung in the balance until the very last minute.
That special report compiled by Alan Fisher and by Jim McLean. Much for joining us. We go back now to our live outside broadcast at Easter Road and rejoin Alan Fisher. Thank you. The fans here at Easter Road are understandably upset that the future of the club still hangs in the balance for another 48 hours. Some of the supporters here, just how do you feel about the way this has been handled?
Yeah, well, I'm very disappointed. Like most Hibs fans, I was prepared to celebrate last Friday and expecting certainly this Friday to celebrate, but now Mr. knocked that in the head. But we will be celebrating in the future.
How do you feel about the way Wallace Mercer has conducted this and perhaps making you wait another 48 hours before you know if there will be a Hibernian next season?
I think the situation is quite clear. It's Mr. Mercer now against the Hibs fans. The situation is now that the fans have won, and I would ask Mr. Mercer now to retreat gracefully, because there is no doubt about it. It's hands off Hibs 1, Wallace Mercer nothing.
There has been some suggestion that there could be a compromise deal. Would that be something that would find favour with the Hibs fans?
The Hibs fans will never, ever, ever compromise with Wallace Mercer. I'll repeat myself again. Hands off Hibs 1, Wallace Mercer nothing.
How do you feel about the way the things have happened over the last 4 or 5 weeks since the takeover bid was announced?
Well, I think obviously it's been a disgrace, but it's brought the fans together to fight against this bid, this hostile bid. I feel that Hands Off Hibs committee have been excellent and we'll continue to fight it.
Do you think that's fair, that you're a more united club now?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's brought all different factions of the club together. But what I will say is now that Mr. Mercer has decided to extend for another 7 days, if that's what he's decided to do, well, we can't keep the bears off much longer. I mean, actually, the kid gloves have got to come off.
That's the views of the fans here at Easter Road. Now back to the studio.
Reaction to the news of Wallace Mercer's pull-out. Now let's get the reaction of Kenny McLean of Hands Off Hibs.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'm overcome for these people. And where's that wee baby? That's what it's all about. Baby 5 days old here. Unbelievable. Can I just show him? Yeah! What does Wallace Mercer do about that? I mean, that's the very essence of the Hibs support.
Do you think in that case that wee 5-day-old baby will be able to buy a season ticket for Hibs in Easter Road in 20 years' time?
I'm sure. Absolutely positive about it.
We'll buy him on next week.
Unbelievable. I'm so delighted for everyone here, for the whole Hibs fraternity, because this has been a victory for the people and worked magnificently by the people.
Hands off Hibs 1.
Yeah! I like it.
Celebrations started immediately at the Hibs Supporters Club in Edinburgh.
The Hibs fans was uncontrollable as the news broke that they'd won their fight to save the club. Rumours swept the city. Wallace Mercer had withdrawn from the takeover battle. When the confirmation finally came, the fans celebrated. They danced and sang in the streets. Grown men broke down and wept. For Hands Off Hibs campaign chairman Kenny McLean, victory was sweet.
Their support has been phenomenal. I mean, you couldn't have asked for anything more. And we'll be here in another 1,000 years' time.
At the Hibernian Supporters Club, the atmosphere was electric as the victory party continued. The fans sang themselves hoarse, delighted Wallace Mercer had failed to win the necessary 76% to take control of the Easter Road club. And joining in the celebrations were former Hibs legends, including Pat Stanton.
I would love to see all the people getting really behind the club now. The people who don't go to all the games, I'd love to see them coming along.
As the party continued unabated, the fans were joined in their celebrations by Hibs chairman David Duff and his right-hand man, Jim Gray.
We're delighted, that's the only word for it. It wasn't right, it never was right from the beginning. That was our belief. Wallace had an idea, had a vision. He should be respected for that. But Edinburgh didn't want it, Scottish football didn't want it. But that shouldn't take away the fact that he had his ideas, and that's an end of it. I think it's a nice celebration for Hibernian Football Club.
Tonight, Wallace Mercer's dream for a united Edinburgh side lies in tatters. Hibernian Football Club continue, but the takeover battle has raised questions about their financial status that will have to be answered when tonight's celebrations finally end.
Hibs fans have been celebrating in the city since last night's decision. But despite the rejoicing, Hibs now face severe financial problems, made worse by a hostile majority of shareholders. Now that Mr Mercer has dropped his bid, the company's share price is expected to fall heavily, and changes in the club's leadership are expected. Speaking last night, Mr Mercer said although Hearts had won the business argument hands down, they had to withdraw because the Hibs management would not negotiate a deal with them.